Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to our final bit of the first day of coverage of Psifest 2023 here in Charlottesville, Virginia, with the International Remote Viewing Association and Monroe Institute. Our guest in this segment is the indomitable Lyn Buchanan. He was one of many and one of the progenitors of the government Stargate program. Welcome back to the program.
Yeah, not the progenitor. Actually, it had been in existence 10 years before I got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, last time you were on the show, we were talking a little bit about some of your remote viewing courses, things like that.
Yeah.
We had a great conversation this morning at breakfast that I've referenced more than one time.
Oh, really?
Today.
Okay.
Specifically the fact of you can train anybody to remote view, but you can't train everybody to be psychic, even though everybody has psychic qualities too.
Well, that's it. Well, the thing is, as you train them to use what psychic ability they have, they're going to automatically increase in their psychic abilities. It's like any learning, you
Sure.
do make new synapses. But also, since they haven't been using it before, and now they're using it, they feel that you have made them psychic. And there are a lot of teachers out there that are trying to sell on that, get money.
Yeah.
And say,
yeah.
I will make you psychic.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Well, because you're already psychic.
You're already psychic. Yeah. You've already got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You just need to learn to flex the muscles. They may be atrophied, or you've just never flexed them before.
Like the old saying, if you've got it, learn to flaunt it.
Yeah. Well, precisely. And let's explore that for a minute, because the idea of non-localized consciousness, the idea of all of us being a subatomic engine to begin with, that makes us all interconnected already. So the idea of being able to transverse space to see something doesn't seem like that far of a leap for the imagination at that point.
For the imagination, for the conscious mind, it's a great leap. Yeah.
And how do you, I guess, first steps, how do you start releasing somebody from the fear of that leap, Lyn?
Okay. Now, for a lot of the remote viewing and the psychic courses and all that, I'm not sure how they do it because I've never really been exposed to those.
Okay.
I was exposed from the very beginning to the English Swan method.
Okay.
And the English Swan method is more of a martial art than anything else.
In what way?
Well, in that it's physical.
Okay.
We start you off by saying, okay, here's a pen and paper. Give me the simplest graphic representation you can of water. People will go waves, Okay, now then, the most simplest graphic representation you can of motion, and they go zoom like that. Okay, and then we practice that over and over. It's the equivalent of wax on, wipe off, wax on, wipe off.
Yeah.
And one day in the martial art, somebody comes around that swing without thinking about it. You wax on. Okay.
Yeah, it becomes a muscular memory.
It becomes a muscular memory. And so once you've given them these what's called ideogram drills,
Okay.
over and over and over. I think mine was 2 months before they would go on, but it became solid muscle memory. And one day they said, okay, we've got this envelope and there's a picture in it. What's it a picture of? And my hand went like this. And I said, I don't know what it's a picture of. He said, well, what did your muscle say? Well, it said there's some land and some water. They opened it up and it was a beach. Simple as that. And by doing this, it's a lot of work. Okay, it takes tons of practice. And yet, your subconscious already has the ability to know what's in the envelope. It also has the ability to know what's going on in what's written on a sheet of paper that's in a safe in the Kremlin. It has that ability to know. The thing is, your conscious mind doesn't have a way to access the subconscious knowledge. And so if you develop that way of having your body tell you, that's stage 1, okay? You get into stage 2, and you say, okay, you say there's water and there's land. Describe the land. Haven't opened the envelope. I don't know what the land is like. Okay, well, rub your hand across the paper. What do you feel? It feels gritty. Write it down. Feels wet. Write it down. Okay? Now then, describe the water. I don't know what the water's like. Well, what impressions are you getting? It smells fishy.
Sure.
Yeah, salty taste.
And I think that
is physical.
Yeah, I was going to say that is one of the most fascinating parts of it, is the synesthetic part of remote viewing.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily that an image just pops into your head, but
controlled remote viewing.
Yeah, precisely. Controlled, and we should make that distinction, because that is specifically the remote viewing that you practice.
That the military used all the time too.
Yeah. And that once again is the highly drilled form of remote viewing.
Absolutely.
Sure, you are using your intuition, things like that.
Right.
But it's not necessarily like mediumship or clairvoyance.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And this is the controlled remote viewing that was trained by the military and trained me. And the fact is that just like you can become a black belt in the martial art, you can become a black belt at controlled remote viewing.
Sure. And much like any black belt or any karate class, there are people in the class who will attain that rank.
Absolutely.
And that belt slightly faster. They will learn katas a little bit faster, things like that. Same thing with this, very much so. You may have 3 different students come in with literally the same education level.
That's right,
2 of them will excel, 1 of them may peter for a little while,
And the general rule about how fast you're going to get it is, do you wax on, wipe off? You practice.
Yeah. I was going to say, how much work are you doing? Because much like, hey, you could wish and manifest all day long, but if you're not putting the work in to help that manifestation, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
You've got to still do the work.
With CRV, you can sit back and intend all you want. If it didn't wind up on the paper, you didn't do anything.
Where's the trail?
That's right.
Now, when you started in the program, how were you recruited into Stargate? Let's hear that story first for many of the listeners out there who may not be familiar with your
If you've seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, okay? I didn't kill the goat. I killed the computers. This incident happened over in Germany, and I got flaming angry at a person while I was giving a demonstration of a computer program I had written. And he had intentionally hacked it, messed it up. And here was 12 commanding generals from 12 different countries. And I was given this presentation, and I hit the enter key, and it went blank. And they all started laughing at me. And I looked up, and here's this other sergeant who had wanted the job of writing the program. And he said, "Gotcha," and turned around and walked off. I got flaming angry, and when I did, the field station went down. The entire field station went down.
Wow.
And I've had this PK ability all my life that I've had to fight. Well, the information about that got back to General Stubblebine, who was head of the Intelligence and Security Command, and he had been looking for people to do this. And
had he heard stories about people who could do this?
Oh, yeah. He was.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And he brought me back to D.C. Initially, he thought, well, put him in the remote viewing unit, but he wanted me to start a unit that would learn to destroy enemy computers.
Target.
Yeah.
Specifically
Yeah.
targeting.
With the end goal of not destroying them, but controlling the information in the enemy computers so that we could make their missiles drop into the sea.
Sure.
Or just mess up their computers and all that.
Yeah. Haywire communications,
yeah.
what have you.
And Congress said, that sounds like mind control. Congress had been caught in the 60s doing mind control, and they said never again.
Oh, yeah.
And so they wouldn't fund it.
Wow.
So Bert, General Stubblebine,
So MK Ultra actually put the kibosh on things to begin with.
a lot of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, because they got caught.
Oh, yeah, like pants down, red bottomed.
Oh,
they
yeah.
got caught.
Oh, yeah.
Hard.
And
Well,
so anyway.
I mean, it was a telltale thing whenever the CIA bought up all the LSD in the world.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
That should have been clue number one.
Yeah. Should have been. Something strange is
When you
going
buy
on
the
here.
whole
Yeah.
world's supply of a chemical, maybe there's something there.
Yeah. So anyway, he took me out to the remote viewing unit, put me in there, and when I first went in, I really didn't know anything about the remote viewing unit, and so they read me on, which is where they give you a sheet of paper that tells what the unit really does instead of what they tell the public they do. Mm-hmm. And you read it and you sign it, and when you sign it, that says
Mum from this point.
"Mum from this point," or it's 10 years in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I signed it, and I thought, this is stupid. I'm on candid camera. This is a joke. But over the next few weeks, I saw the people doing it, and they were doing phenomenal work. And I took to it like a duck to water. I mean, this was the most fascinating job I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And so over the next couple of years, I wound up being the trainer of the unit. And
Now, during this time, did anybody know the purview through which you were brought into the unit? And this the hopeful
I think
the hopeful end goal of you being there, the fact
director
that
did.
a weaponization of
yes,
this.
the director did.
Okay. But
Yeah.
but none of your fellow remote viewers.
I don't think they were told about that. No.
How do you think they would have felt about that if they would have found out that they were trying to? I mean, I guess you're in the military. You
Well-
can't assume that they aren't weaponizing something.
Well, I think they would have. I think they would have not liked it because we had the edict that we were never to do active mental work. What's now called remote influencing.
Yes, exactly. And I was
we
just
were
about to
only
say
do passive mental work,
that.
collect intelligence, and
So watch how they are influenced.
yeah.
So
And
that
if
so
they
that
had
maybe
known
even
that I was there, selected originally to do active mental work, I think they would have been very cautious about it.
I would tend to think so. I mean, most people who have the skill set
Yeah.
and come like you do with an innate skill set already, they are connected to things in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and there's a heart the size of Texas in
Oh, yeah.
most people that are intuitive.
Yeah,
And
it
yes,
really
they
is.
don't. It's kind of like I've never met anybody that uses
Yeah.
their mental ability to go out and hustle poker,
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that.
Well,
because,
you know, that's why. Yeah, I admit I killed the computers.
yeah.
I could.
You
never,
weren't trying to kill the computers, though.
No, I
you were
wasn't.
just angry.
Yeah, but I could never have brought myself to kill the goat.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
Even for
and
Cabrito.
people say, "Oh, well, George Clooney played you in the movie." The movie character Lynn Cassidy was actually a compilation of things that happened over 20 years to all of the viewers,
Yeah.
and my part of it was killing the computers and other parts of it through the movie. So yeah, he played me in the movie. But the other incidents, he played other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they, like you said, kind of enwrapped all that together in one person as
Well,
the
they
head
had
of the
to
unit.
wrap
But,
20 years of stories into a
Yeah.
2-hour movie.
Yeah.
You had to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's hard not to conglomerate those things. And of course, that leads to a lot of, I guess, historic confusion for some people.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And especially, once again, knowing that you went into the program with the intent of them weaponizing some of this through you.
Well,
but also
weaponizing the PK.
Yeah, the PK.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the idea that they didn't want you to do remote influencing.
No, they didn't want the remote viewing unit to do the remote influence.
Well, sure, yeah. Because they're two different tasks, of course.
Well, one is mind control.
Yeah.
The other
now, granted,
is gaining information.
And I could see exactly why the CIA would want their hands on this method. Because not necessarily even in remote influencing status, but in the fact that you could remote view how somebody is influenceable. You could remote view somebody to see how they are prone to things.
We wouldn't do that.
What their habits are, what their addictions are, things that would make them a good asset.
We did a lot of personality profiles, a lot of plans and intentions.
Yeah.
Get into plans and intentions
once
of the
again,
next day of battle.
Those are the beginning steps of, can we make this person an asset from the other side? Can we?
That was not our purvey.
No. But that's absolutely what's being
to
set
somebody
up.
else, and what they did with it, we had no.
Precisely. But it's a great way to be able to immediately tell if somebody is maybe coercible, in some way, or maybe has a pressure point that you can lean on to move them politically.
Let me give you one example of how we sort of almost crossed the line. I almost crossed the line, and almost dangerously so. There was this one facility, I won't tell what country it was in, and they had some kind of protection on this highly classified facility they had. They'd had remote viewers who just couldn't get into it. So came my turn, and I couldn't get into it either. But I found that there was the director, and so I thought, well, maybe I can get into his mind and get the information.
Sure.
I couldn't. And so I found out in that process that he had a young son that he was proud of, and was really disappointed in the fact that he couldn't tell his son what Daddy does. So I, at this point, shouldn't have done it, influenced him to get to daydreaming about what he would tell his son if he could. And he sat there in his office daydreaming, telling his son in his mind all about the facility. And I was at remote view. I was at Fort Meade taking notes. And so that crossed the line.
Yeah.
But we got the information.
And
yeah.
Is that the only time that you ever crossed the line, Lyn?
Well, of course.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
All right.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure under orders, things like that, you did whatever you were tasked
you
to
do.
do.
You do what you need to do to get the information, because it's going to save not only U.S. lives.
Yeah.
But the lives of British soldiers, Russian soldiers.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you guys were finding POW camps, all kinds of things.
We saved as many Russian lives as we did U.S. lives.
Wow.
Simply by stopping battles.
Yeah. That is incredible. That's incredible. And to know that now, when you're viewing, Lyn, when you're in the middle of a session, of course, we were talking about synesthesia, the idea that smells, colors, textures, things like what. That was part of our conversation this morning. Was the fact that whenever you're tasked by a client, that you have a database of people that, hey, this person senses color more vividly than this guy. Like this guy sees things in black and white.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding the proper person in that way, and how do you go about identifying the fact that they are better at, let's say, feeling a texture than somebody else?
Fred Atwater covered that this morning in his lecture. They said, first of all, do you have the clearance? If you didn't have the clearance, you never got into the unit.
Sure.
Do you have an acceptance of psychic phenomena? If you didn't believe in it, then they weren't going to spend a year convincing you, and they did with me, because General says take him.
We saw this happen.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and so there were certain criteria. Mental stability. In order to get into the unit, we had to go through some really rigorous stuff to mentally stable. They didn't want mentally unstable people in there, and also just the ability to understand things. If we task you with certain equipment, okay, can you understand enough what's going on to report it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sure.
And by that time, before General Stubblebine got me brought into the unit, by that time I was a Russian linguist specializing in Russian technology and advancement. And that was my job at the field station. And so as part of that, when I came into the remote viewing unit, it was with that knowledge and that ability to understand all of the technological stuff the Russians were doing, and of course other countries too.
Yeah, what their current capabilities were, what they were working toward,
and
things
so
like that.
In the selection process, they also looked for your abilities outside of any psychic functioning,
Okay.
So it was a very strict, and a lot of people have since said, how do I get into the unit? You don't.
Yeah.
Don't call us.
Yeah.
We'll call you.
Yeah. We probably won't call you. It may just be a van that shows up.
That's right, yeah. Hey, I've always said, to remote viewers, if you do a session, you turn it in, and all of a sudden, these black vans come racing up to your house. They come crashing into your house and take all of your computers, all of your paperwork and all that, and cart it out into their black van and drive off down the street with everything you've ever done. You know what the proper response is? Damn, I'm good.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. And, when you're viewing, Lyn, what comes through more for you? Is it audio, smells, textures?
By this time now, I've been doing this for 35 years.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Okay.
In the very beginning, of course, it was colors and smells, and that was basically it. The rest of the time, I just had to rely on the physical response.
Okay.
But first of all, my strength was colors and smells, and then as I practiced, which I did. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Then the other things develop too. And this is the thing about controlled remote viewing, that it's not so much your psychic ability, It's your practice. You don't practice, you don't get good.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that in mind, take us through a generalized remote viewing session.
Okay.
How do you start with the target? How does a client come to you with the target? Things like that.
The client comes to your director or to somebody else, not the viewer.
Sure.
And that person finds out, narrows down the questions that the client wants answered. They take that and put it into a format that can be, this is question 1, question 2, question 3. And they then look to see who can do the best job on each question. Okay? And that's in the database. We rely heavily on a database. And then you sanitize the question and you give it to a monitor. This is the ideal session, okay? You give it to a monitor, and let's say they want to know where something is in the world, okay? And so they say, over in such and such country, we've lost an atomic warhead and all this, okay? And so then the director gives to the monitor the question, the target is a location, describe the location. The monitor tells the viewer, either the target's a location, describe the location, or he may say, this is project 2704, question 3, what's the answer? That's it.
Oh.
And in fact, he may not even say that. He may say 2704-3, view it. The more information you can keep from a remote viewer, the better they're going to do.
Really?
Yeah, because their conscious mind isn't there saying, "Ooh, I know what the target is."
Well, yeah. You don't have the presumption at that point. You don't have the pre-construct.
You work clean.
Of something. Yeah,
you work clean.
And that's just it. We were talking about that earlier today about the the idea of. I'm not saying you can't remote view into the past. I'm not saying you can't remote view Mars. Yeah. Absolutely. But to remote view a specific incident.
Yeah.
I find some of that troublesome with at least with controlled remote viewing.
Yeah.
In the world of controlled remote viewing, it's problematic.
Yeah.
Because at that point you're revealing location. You're revealing something like the example I gave you was the Bigfoot case from '65 where people were attacked. You're giving a lot of information there that is narrative.
You make sure you never give that to the viewer.
Yeah.
You may give it to the project manager. You may...
so that they can verify hit, non-hit, things like that.
You may at some time even give bits of that to the monitor so that he can tell whether the viewer's on target or not.
Yeah, so he can pull more information out of it.
Never give it to the viewer.
Well, yeah, because much like a hypnotist, there's a difference between coaxing a client to give you information and leading a hypno session and leading somebody to an answer. And you could very easily as a monitor lead somebody to an answer if you're not careful.
You've got to train the monitor. I think the monitor gets trained more highly than the viewer does because they have got to stay neutral. Even let's say I have a target and you get a really successful description of it. If I feel pleasure that you did a good job, the pheromones in the room are going to pollute your session.
Totally.
And so you have to train a monitor to where they cannot react.
Yeah, to where they have no emotive response.
That's right. Yeah.
Even if they are dead on 120% right, there can be no emotive response from the monitor.
Yeah.
Now, is it helpful or hurtful in a session if the monitor is a remote viewer?
Oh, the monitor needs to be a remote viewer.
Okay.
A trained remote viewer.
Okay.
Because they understand what's going on. They can look across the table and see your micro movements, see when you're physically responding and not writing something down. And then they can say, what was that you just got?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
It
wasn't
seemed like
anything.
you just got a hit.
It wasn't anything. I don't care what it was. Write it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, when you're in a session and when you're viewing, I don't know how much viewing you personally do anymore. I know most of your work is now in passing it on to the next generation of people, which is a topic we talk about regularly with MUFON.
Oh, yeah.
People like that, even the Bigfoot community. It's the fact of most of the people that generated and started this work, folks like you who came in even 10 years after the program started.
Well, I realize I don't have that many years left.
Where's the next crop? Where's the next instructors?
Oh,
and we have to be bringing them up. It's fantastic, and it's great to see this conference this year because last year there was a very distinct age range.
Old fogies.
This year we've got like 20-year-olds here.
I know.
It's beautiful.
It's great.
It's awesome because it lets you know that this research can carry on for another 30 years now. If you've got 20-year-olds interested, they ain't going to lose interest.
Right.
This isn't a topic that you lose interest in.
No, it's not.
It doesn't get boring.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
It's not like reading Anne
unless
Rice.
you give them boring targets.
Sure. But it's the fact of moving forward with it and the fact that it will still be an evolving science.
That's right.
Because it is a science. There's a science to this.
And it is evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have developments in the process of my group, we have been learning a lot by being contracted by space research people.
Yep.
By medical people.
Wow.
And police departments and R&D people. And so each one that contacts us to do work, we learn what they need as opposed to what everybody else needs. And we have to develop some new tool for that specialty.
Yeah.
And so more and more people are getting lawyers, doctors, everybody, and we have to expand our tools so that we can meet their needs. And once it got out of the military and into the civilian arena, it has been growing and developing.
I could see numerous industries that would use it as a consultant source.
Yeah.
And would use it as a consultancy, absolutely.
Not only a consultancy, but I have non-disclosure agreements, so I can't go any further than this.
Yet.
Companies are interested in developing their own remote viewing team, just like the military had.
Sure.
And I've been instrumental in doing that as well.
No different than developing a good algorithm team that can do predictive algorithms.
Now, the thing is,
things like that.
Their work is going to be specialized in their way.
Yeah, precisely.
Toward their company.
Yeah. And even, to say that you can take this and gear it towards something specifically and train those viewers in that specific way is awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, let's get into your system for a little bit for the last couple minutes here because we're getting ready to go. We're getting ready to go to dinner.
Okay.
I don't want you to give away a lot of proprietaries, but
no, I won't.
How does somebody begin the process of remote viewing? How do they step into the world?
You mean a viewer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You get coordinates. 270804-3. Describe it. And so the initial stage one is, I don't know what it is. Oh, what'd your hand do? Oh, well, there's water and something man-made and there's some land. Okay. Stage two, describe the water. Now, once you do that, describe the land. And so that stage one not only tells you the basics of what's at the target, but it organizes the session. So you're not like a psychic where it's just all over the place. Tell me about only the water. Tell me about only the land. Now, tell me about the man-made object. Okay? The man-made object is big and square and metallic. Okay? Tap on the metal. What kind of metal is it? And you can take each descriptor they give you and ask for more descriptors of that descriptor, and pretty soon you wind up with what's written on the side of the machine.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And so by doing it that way, that stage one organizes the rest of the session so that you can just branch out on each descriptor you get and find out tons of information on each thing. It's red, okay? Oh, tell me why it's red. Oh, well, it's red. It's dangerous. Oh, how is it dangerous? Oh, you know?
Yeah.
And by doing this, a remote viewer can sit there in session in an hour and draw the floor plans of a place where a hostage is being held so that you can go and rescue them without getting them killed.
Wow.
We've done that. Joe has often, one of Joe's first sessions was the M1 Abrams tank. And they were saying, okay, we've got this classified project, describe it. And they expected to get maybe it's a tank.
Yeah.
No, he drew the inside of it down to the straps for the seat, down to the dashboard, everything.
Wow.
And at that point, they said, send out the black vans.
Yeah. We have a special chair for you, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Come here. We have some questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could see how that could definitely make somebody in the ranks sweat bullets.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about a closed door SAP,
That was
special access program.
At the time, that was the highest classified thing in the U.S. military.
Yeah.
And he just...
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, are there materials that block remote viewing? Are there things that you can't get through, Lyn?
The Ingus One technique. I would say no.
Okay.
In fact, one time there was this ship. They suspected drugs. Okay, and I was the monitor for this, and the viewer had described a ship, and I said, okay, board the ship. Tell me about it. Well, I can't board it, and I can't get to it. And just out of, just happened to occur to me, well, if you could, what would you find? Oh, well, if I could, I would find, and they described everything on the ship. We found the drugs. Over the period of years, we found that just about, I would say every means of protecting a target, we can get past it.
Wow. Wow.
And when it comes to protecting a person, we have found that if the person puts up a ball of white light to protect themselves and all that.
It's like a beacon?
No, not so much. What happens is their belief that they have that protection lowers their natural ability to protect, their tendency to naturally protect themselves, and it actually makes them an easier target to remote view using controlled remote viewing.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, it basically makes them like a beacon. Like, it makes them almost easier to find.
It makes them invisible.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and, invisible, we can see anything in them. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is intense and wild, Lyn. What's the most remarkable thing that you have remote viewed before we let you go?
Oh, I would have to pick from hundreds
I don't
of
want
targets.
you to. I don't want you to talk about something that you're still read on to.
Oh, no.
I don't know, anything like that.
The
But
two that mostly come to mind, one, Saddam Hussein had a thing that had a plan. If he had been successful at the plan, right now, you and I and everybody in this place would either be Muslim or dead. He would have succeeded, and he would have wiped out the United States, period. There's no way to stop him.
wow.
And just by accident in a session, I found the key component to his plan. We were able to stop the plan, and I think that was the most important session I'd ever done because it changed history.
Yeah.
For me, the most important personally was a practice session. I had been tasked with the plans and intentions of foreign leaders and Edie and Saddam Hussein repeatedly. The man was crazy.
Oh, he was
and
special.
And you get into somebody's mind like that, you have to be careful you don't bring it back with
I was
you.
just about to say, is it hard to get their mind out of your mind once you're in there?
There's a detoxification process. You can spend an hour in a session and spend 4 hours detoxing from it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'd been given all these miserable leaders and I went in and I said, look, this is wearing me down. I can't do this anymore. And the director said, do your damn job. You're a soldier. Do your job. Get out of my office. And so anyway, about a week later, it was a practice session. I didn't know that. Went over with a monitor, and he said, okay, this is a personality profile. That's where you don't get into their mind and find their plans and intentions. You just stand off and describe a person.
Yeah.
And so I started working, and I almost immediately said, oh, you gave me the wrong target. This is a good guy. And so he said, go ahead and do the session. I did the session, and by the end of it, I felt like I was just glowing. I had never met a more perfect, wonderful person in my life. And so the end of my session, my summary was, whatever evil you think this guy did, he didn't do it. And so the monitor ripped open the envelope. The director had taken a sheet of paper and written on it in handwriting rather than a typed thing, Jesus.
Wow.
And I know that I never met Jesus, okay?
Yeah. Sure.
I met Jesus. And it changed my life.
Wow.
Everything I'd ever learned in Sunday school that was wrong, I suddenly knew it was wrong. Everything that was right in Sunday school, I suddenly beyond knew it was right.
Wow.
And it changed my life.
Wow.
It really did.
That's beautiful.
And for me, that was the most important session. The most important session I think I ever did for the military unit was that one where I found that one piece of...
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it hadn't been for that session, we would not live in a free country now. I can guarantee it 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The things that you must have seen and viewed over the many, many years, Lyn, I can only imagine. The conversations that we've personally had have been eye-opening to begin with.
Listen, the Chinese curse is, may you live in interesting times. I have lived in interesting times, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting, most interesting job anybody could ever have.
Yeah. I imagine. I imagine.
Yeah.
Lyn, before we let you go, look over here. Let everybody know where they can go to find your work, where they can go to get your amazing book, other than the Curious Realm store, and where they can go to find out about lessons and remote viewing classes, because you have a fantastic university, things like that online.
Oh, online, yeah. I teach classes online now, and that's at crviewer.com, crviewer.com. CRV plus viewer, but I just used one V.
Totally.
The thing we're establishing for development is called Remote View Ranch. I bought a ranch in the middle of nowhere. It's in a no-fly zone. It's basically surrounded on 3 sides by government land for
Wow.
dozens and dozens of miles. There's no development. On the other side, it's 5 miles from the nearest little oasis town. And the first thing you get when you get there to the land and get out of your car, the silence and the peace is so loud you can actually hear it.
Wow.
If you've never heard the sound of silence before, it's just astounding. And the peacefulness out there. And so I'm building a facility out there for the research and development and training, further training of remote viewing. But we've also got all kinds of other projects going for space development, medical developments, and so on. So
Wow.
we're doing it.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time once again. It's always a pleasure talking with you anytime we have you on the show, Lyn.
Thank you.
It's always great.
I enjoy this. You're a good host.
Thank you. I enjoy the conversation. It's all about how we grow together as a humanity, man. And if we're not talking, we're 10 steps behind.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It all starts with words, man.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you so much. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of Lyn Buchanan, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is the website. That is where you can find all of our episodes. That's where you can find our store to be able to buy Lyn's books, all of our researchers' books. Stay tuned after this commercial break. We will be coming back with day 2 of our live coverage from Psifest 2023 here in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm lucky I remembered Charlottesville.
We'll have you remote view the place.
That's right. Yeah. We'll be right back after these commercial messages, folks.
Okay. Good.